Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I am back with some more ancient lore. Today we are diving back into Dante's Inferno. This is Canto 25 through 30. We will be reading them aloud and then discussing it afterwards. Part of this is vocal therapy. My voice may waver in and out. If you're not cool with that, that is perfectly understandable. If you would like to start at the beginning, the links are provided in the corner up here and in the description box down below. Uh, Also, shout out Chris. I'm assuming that because of the storm, Hurricane Barrel, that you don't have power or internet and you're just not letting me know that you're okay because of that. I'm assuming that as soon as you get power back, you're going to let me know because, we can't have the crew in danger and not know about that. So let me know in the comments that you're safe. Next up, we are in Inferno, Canto 25. At the conclusion of his words, the thief the thief lifted his hands aloft with both the figs, crying, "Take that, God, for at thee I aim them." From that time forth the serpents were my friends, for one entwined itself about his neck as if it said, "I will not thou speak more. I will not thou speak more." And round his arms another, and rebound him, clenching itself together so in front that with them he could not a motion make. Pistoia, ah, Pistoia, why resolve not to burn thyself to ashes and so perish, since in ill-doing thou thy seed excellest? Through all the sombre circles of this hell, spirit I saw not against God so proud, not he who fell at Thebes down from the walls. He fled away and spake no further word. And I beheld a centaur full of rage come crying out, where is the scoffer? I do not think Marama has so many serpents as he had all along his back, as far as where our countenance begins. Upon the shoulders, just behind the nape, with wings wide open, was a dragon lying, and he sets fire to all that he encounters. My master said, "That one is Cacus, who, beneath the rock upon Mount Aventine, created ofttimes a lake of blood. He goes not on the same road with his brothers by reason of the fraudulent theft he made of the great herd which he had near to him, whereat his tortuous actions ceased beneath the mace of Hercules, who, peradventure, gave him 100, and he felt not 10. While he was speaking thus, he had passed by, and the spirits three had underneath us come, of which nor I aware was, nor my leader, until what time they shouted, "Who are you? On what account our story made a halt, and then we were intent on them alone." I did not know them, but it came to pass, as it is wont to happen by some chance, that one to name the other was compelled, exclaiming, "Where can Cianfa have remained? Whence I, so that the leader might attend, upward from chin to nose my finger laid. If thou art, reader, slow now to believe what I shall say, it will no marvel be, for I who saw it hardly can admit it. As I was holding raised on them my brows, behold, a serpent with 6 feet darts forth in front of one, and fastens wholly onto him. With middle feet it bound him round the paunch, and with the forward ones his arms it seized, then thrust its teeth through one cheek and the other. The hindermost it stretched upon his thighs, and put its tail in between the two, and up behind along the reins outspread it. Ivy was never fastened by its barbs upon a tree so, as this horrible reptile upon the other's limbs entwined its own. Then they stuck close, as if of heated wax they had been made, and intermixed their color. Nor was one nor other seemed now what he was, even as proceedeth on before the flame upward along the paper a brown color, which is not black as yet, and the white dies. The other two looked on, and each of them cried out, "On me, Agnello, how thou changest! Behold, thou now art neither two nor one." Already the two heads had one become, when there appeared to us two figures mingled into one face wherein the two were lost. Of the four lists were fashioned the two arms, the thigh and legs, the belly and the chest, members that never yet were seen. Every original aspect there was cancelled, too, and yet none did the perverted image appear, and such departed with slow pace, even as a lizard under the great scourge of day's canicular, exchanging hedge lightning appeareth if the road it cross. Thus it did appear, coming towards the bellies of the two others, a small fiery serpent, livid and black as is peppercorn. And in and in that part whereat it first received our ailment, one of them transfixed, then downward fell in front of them, extended. The one transfixed looked at it, but said naught, nay, rather with feet motionless he yawned, just as if sleep or fever had assailed him. He at the serpent gazed, and it at him. One through the wound, and the other through the mouth, smoked violently, and the smoke commingled. Henceforth be silent, Lucan, where he mentions wretched Sabellus and Nasidius, and wait to hear what now shall be shot forth. Be silent, Ovid, of Cadmus and Arethusa. For if him to a snake, her to a fountain, converts he fabling, that I grudge him not, because two natures never front to front has he transmuted, so that both the forms to interchange their matter ready were. Together they responded in such wise that to a fork the serpent cleft his tail, and eke the wounded drew his feet together. The legs, together with the thighs themselves, adhered so that in little time the juncture, no sign whatever made that was apparent. He, with the cloven tail, assumed the figure. The other one was losing, and his skin became elastic, and the other's hard. I saw the arms draw inward in the armpits, and both feet of the reptile that were short lengthen as much as those contracted were. Thereafter the hind feet, together twisted, became the member that a man conceals, and of his own the wretch had two created, while both of them the exhalation veils with a new color, and engenders hair on one of them, and depilates the other. The one uprose, and down the other fell, though turning not away their impious lamps, underneath which each one his muzzle changed. He who was standing drew it towards his temples, and from excess of matter which came thither issued the ears from out the hollow cheeks. What did not backward run and was retained of that excess made to the face and nose, and the lips thickened as far as was befitting. He who lays prostrate thrusts his muzzle forward, and backwards draws the ears into his head, in the same manner as the snail its horns. And so the tongue, which was entire and apt for speech before, is cleft, and the biforked in the other closes up, and the smoke ceases. The soul, which to a reptile had been changed, along the valley hissing takes to flight, and after him other speaking sputters. Then did he turn upon him his new shoulders, and said to the other, I'll have Buso run, crawling as I have done, along this road. In this way I beheld the seventh ballast shift and reshift, and here be my excuse, the novelty, if aught my pen transgress. And notwithstanding that mine eyes might be somewhat bewildered, and my mind dismayed, they could not flee away so secretly, but that I plainly saw Puccio Sciencato, and he it was whose soul of the three companions which came in the beginning was not changed. The other was he whom thou, Gavil, weepest. And so ends Canto 25. And again, this is a history lesson. This is a mythology lesson. This is a whole lot of people to look up, but it's not really theology. It's not even really trying to convey itself as theology for the most part. It's the imaginings of a man. It is pretty wild, the things that he comes up with, right? This guy created two penises for himself. That is pretty wild. And the building up and the taking away at the same time. That's an interesting concept. It is, but like again, it's not doctrine for anything. It's just the interesting look into the 13th century mind, and definitely worth looking at for historical sake. Absolutely, probably absolutely beautiful in the original Tuscan language. Some of the translation loses the flavor of the text, right? Because it's a poem. It's 3 lines of poetry. And so the way that I read it and the way that it was intentionally meant to be read are two completely different things. First, for the literal meaning of the words, and second, because it's different tempo and meter than what would it be originally intended. All right, now we're going to dive into Canto 26. That's some good water. Rejoice, O Florence, since thou art so great, that over sea and land thou beatest thou wings, and throughout hell thy name is spread abroad. Among the thieves 5 citizens of thine like these I found, whence shame comes unto me, and thou thereby to no great honor risest. But if when morn is near our dreams are true, feel shalt thou in a little time from now what Prato, if none other, craves for thee. And if it now were, if it were not too soon, would it that it were, seeing it needs must be, for 'twill grieve me more the more I age. We went our way, and up along the stairs the Borns had made us to descend before, remounted my conductor, and drew me, and following the solitary path, among the rocks and ridges of the crag, the foot without the hand sped not at all. Then sorrowed I, and sorrow now again, when I direct my mind to what I saw, and more my genius curb than I am wont, that it may run not unless virtue guided, so that if some good star or better thing have given me good, I may myself not grudge it. As many as the hind who on the hill rest at the time when he who lights the world his countenance keeps least concealed from us, while as the fly gives place unto the gnat, seeth the glowworms down along the valley, perchance where he ploughs and makes his vintage, with flames as manifold resplendent as all was the 8th Bolgia. And as I grew aware, as soon as I was where the depth appeared, and such as he who with the bears avenged him, beheld Elijah's chariot at departing, what time the steeds to heaven erect uprose, for with his eyes he could not follow it, so as to see aught else than flame alone, even as a little cloud ascending upward. Thus each along the gorge of the entrenchment was moving, for not one reveals the theft, and every flame a sinner steals away. I stood upon the bridge uprisen to see, so that if I had seized not on a rock, down had I fallen without being pushed. And the leader, who beheld me so attendant, exclaimed, within the fires the spirits are, each swathes himself with that wherewith he burns. My master, I replied, by hearing thee I am more sure, but I surmised already it might be so, and already wished to ask thee, who is within that fire which comes so cleft? At top it seems uprising from the pyre where was Eteocles with his brother placed. He answered me, within there are tormented Ulysses and Diomed, and thus together they unto vengeance run as unto wrath. And there within their flame do they lament the ambush of the horse, which made the door whence issued forth the Romans' gentle seed. Therein is wept the craft, for which, being dead, Diadamo still deplores Achilles, and pain for the Palladium there is born. If they within those sparks possess much power to speak, I said, thee, master, much I pray, and repray that the prayer be worth 1,000. That thou make no denial of awaiting until the horned flame shall hither come. Thou seest that with desire I lean towards it. And he to me, Worthy is thy entreaty of much applause, and therefore I accept it. But take heed that thy tongue restrain itself. Leave me to speak, because I have conceived that which thou wishest. For they might disdain, perchance, since they were Greeks, discourse of thine. When now the flame had come unto that point, where to my leader it seemed time and place, after this fashion did I hear him speak. O ye who are twofold within one fire, if I deserved of you while I was living, if I deserved of you, or much or little, when in the world I wrote the lofty verses, do not move on, but one of you declare whither, being lost, he went away to die. Then of the antique flame, the greater horn, murmuring, began to wave itself about, even as a flame doth with which the wind fatigues. Thereafterward the summit to and fro, moving as it were the tongue that spake, it uttered forth a voice and said, when I from Circe had departed, who concealed me more than a year there near unto Gaeta? Or ever yet Aeneas named it so? Nor fondness for my son, nor reverence for my old father, nor the due affection which joyous should have made Penelope, could overcome within me the desire I had to be experienced of the world, and of the vice and virtue of mankind. But I put forth on the high open sea with one sole ship, and that small company by which I never had deserted been. Both of the shores I saw as far as Spain, far as Morocco and the Isle of Sardis, and the others which that sea bathes round about. I and my company were old and slow, when at that narrow passage we arrived where Hercules his landmarks set as signals, that man no farther onward should adventure. On the right hand behind me I left Seville, and on the other already had left Ceuta. O brothers, who amid 100,000 perils have come into the West, to this so inconsiderable Virgil, which is remaining of your senses still, be ye unwilling to deny the knowledge, following the sun of the unpeopled world. Consider ye the seed from which ye spring. Ye were not made to live like unto brutes, but for pursuit of virtue and of knowledge. So eager did I render my companions with this brief exhortation for the voyage, that when I hardly could have held them back, and having turned our stern into the morning, we of the oars made wings for our mad flight, evermore gaining on the larboard side. Already all the stars of the other pole the night beheld, and ours was so very low, it did not rise above the ocean floor. 5 times rekindled, and its many quenched, had been the splendor underneath the moon, since we had entered into the deep pass, when there appeared to us a mountain, dim from distance, and it seemed to be so high as I had never any one beheld. Joyful were we, and soon it turned to weeping. For out of the new land a whirlwind arose, and smote upon the fore part of the ship. 3 times it made her whirl with all the waters, and the 4th time it made the stern uplift, and the prow go downward, as pleased another, until the sea above us closed again. And so ends Canto 26. And this one was interesting because it actually gave you part of a legend. That's interesting. I'm not sure that I've heard this particular version of it before, so we will come back at some point. Hopefully I will remember. And we will come back and investigate that some more, because that was interesting. This book was written in the 1300s, right? We talked about that. It was between 1307-ish to 1327-ish. There's a 20-year span right there. And there was a lot of things that happened in those 20 years. But one of them was not Christopher Columbus, right? Sailing out of the Straits of Gibraltar, which is the Pillars of Hercules, by anyone's estimation. Nobody knows exactly, but probably most certainly. And then headed west for 5 days before they came to this spot. Well, that would put them, depending on the ship, right? This is a small ship, so It would depend, right? If they're looking at a small frigate size, they could probably make it considerably into the Atlantic Ocean in 5 days. Heading westward at the right time of year with the right trade winds and the right currents, you can make pretty swift passage in a light ship. So they may not have reached the new continent, but they probably reached where I believe that the center of Atlantis would be, right around the Marianas area. And so, uh, most likely, if this were true, that's where it would be, right? Where the landmass went under the water right there, in my estimation. And so, this is kind of talking about a confirmation of that, and I would like to investigate it further. But this is a possibility of evidence of the bottlenecks, so that's always interesting to me. Next up, let's dive into Canto 27. Already was the flame erect and quiet to speak no more, and now departed from us with the permission of the gentle poet, when yet another, which behind it came, crossed us to turn our eyes upon its top by a confused sound that issued from it, as the Sicilian bull that bellowed first with the lament of him, and that was right, who with his file had modulated it, bellowed so with the voice of the afflicted that, notwithstanding it was made of brass, still it appeared with agony transfixed. Thus, by not having any way or issue at first from out the fire to its own language, converted were the melancholy words. But afterwards, when they had gathered way, up through the point giving it that vibration, the tongue had given them in their passage out. We heard it say, O thou, at whom I aim, my voice, and who but now was speaking Lombard, saying, Now, go thy way, no more I urge thee, because I come perchance a little late, to stay and speak with me, let it not irk thee. Thou seest it irks not me, and I am burning. If thou but lately into this blind world hast fallen down from that sweet Latian land, from whence from I bring the whole of my transgression, say, if the Romagnols have peace or war, I'm sorry, that was a hard word for me, for I was from the mountains, there between Urbino and the yoke, thence Tiber burst. I still was downward bent and listening, when my conductor touched me on the side, saying, Speak thou, this one is Elation is. And I, who had beforehand my reply in readiness, forthwith began to speak. O soul that down below there art concealed, Romagna thine is not, and never has been, without war in the bosom of its tyrants. But open war I none have left there now. Ravenna stands as it long years has stood. The eagle of Polenta there is brooding, so that she covers Servia with her vans. The city which once made the long resistance, and of the French a sanguinary heap, beneath the green palls, finds itself again. Verruccio's ancient mastiff and the new, who made such bad disposal of Montagna, where they are wont to make wimbles of their teeth, the cities of Lamon and Santarno, govern the lionesselle of White Lair, who changes sides twixt summer-time and winter, and that of which the Sevio bathes the flank, even as it lies between the plain and the mountain, lives between tyranny and a free state. Now, I entreat thee, tell us who thou art. Be not more stubborn than the rest have been, so may thy name hold front there in the world. After the fire a little more had roared, in its own fashion, the sharp point it moved this way and that, and then gave forth such breath. If I believe that my reply were made to one who to the world would ever return, this flame without more flickering would stand still, but inasmuch as never from this depth did anyone return, if I hear true, without the fear of infamy, I answer. I was a man of arms, then Cordelier, believing thus begirt to make amends, and truly my beliefs had been fulfilled. but for the high priest, whom may ill betide, who put me back into my former sins, and how and wherefore I will have thee hear. While I was still the form of bone and pulp, my mother gave to me the deeds I did, were not those of a lion, but a fox. The machinations and the covert ways, I knew them all, and practiced so their craft, that to the ends of the earth the sound went forth. When now into that portion of mine age I saw myself arrived, when each one ought to lower the sails and coil away the ropes. That which before had pleased me, then displeased me, and penitent and confessing I surrendered. Ah, woe is me, and it would have bestead me. The leader of the modern Pharisees, having a war near unto Lateran, and not with Saracens nor with the Jews, for each one of his enemies was Christian, and none of them had been to conquer Acre, nor merchandising in the Sultan's land, nor the high office, nor the sacred orders, in him regarded, nor in me that cord which used to make those girt with it more meagre. But even as Constantine sought out Sylvester to cure his leprosy within Socrates, so this one sought me out as an adept, to cure him of the fever of his pride. Counsel he asked of me, and I was silent, because his words appeared inebriate. And then he said, Be not thy heart afraid, henceforth I absolve thee, and thou instruct me how to raise Palestrina to the ground. Heaven have I power to lock and to unlock, and thou dost know therefore the keys are two, to which my predecessor held not dear. Then urged me on his weighty arguments where my silence was the worst advice. And said I, Father, since thou washest me of that sin into which I now must fall, the promise long with the fulfillment short will make thee triumph in the lofty seat. Francis came afterwards when I was dead, for me, but one of the black cherubim said to him, Take him not, do me no wrong. He must come down among my servitors, because he gave the fraudulent advice, from which time forth I have been at his hair. For who repents not cannot be absolved, nor can one both repent and will at once, because of the contradiction which consents not. O miserable me! How did I shudder, how I did shudder, when he seized on me, saying, Peradventure, thou didst not think that I was a logician? He bore me unto Minos, who entwined 8 times his tail around his stubborn back, and after he had bitten it in great rage, said, Of the thievish fire a culprit this, wherefore, here where thou seest am I lost, and vested thus in going, I bemoan me. When it had thus completed its recital, the flame departed, uttering lamentations, writhing and flapping its sharp-pointed horn. Onward we passed, both I and my conductor, up over the crag, above another arch, which the moat covers, where is paid the fee, by those who, sowing discord, win their burden. And again, that ends Canto 27, and this was an interesting piece of history, again, but not really doctrine, right? It's not really... It almost touched on some doctrine, right? Asking forgiveness is a real thing. Receiving forgiveness is a real thing, but getting condemned to hell after you receive forgiveness is probably not a real thing, right? Besides the fact that the concept of hell is not probably a real thing either. It was an interesting view of history, and so there was some things to look up in that as well. Not as much as the previous one, though. It is what it is. It works that way sometimes. Next up, Canto 28. Whoever could, even with untrammeled words, tell of the blood and of the many wounds in full, which now I saw by many times narrating, each tongue would for a certainty fall short by reason of our speech and memory, that have small room to comprehend so much. If were again assembled all the people which formerly upon the fateful land of Puglia were lamenting for their blood, shed by the Romans and the lingering war, that of the rings made such illustrious spoils, as Livy has recorded, who errs not, with those who felt the agony of blows by making counterstand to Robert Guiscard, and all the rest whose bones are gathered still. At Ceperano, where a renegade was each Apulian, and at Tagliascozo, where without arms the old Alardo conquered, and one of his limbs transpierced and one lopped off, should show, and it would be nothing to compare with the disgusting mode of the ninth Bolgia. A cask, by losing centerpiece or cant, was never shattered so as I saw one, rent from the chin where to where one breaketh wind. Between his legs were hanging down his entrails. His heart was visible, and the dismal sack that maketh excrement of what is eaten. While I was all absorbed in seeing him, he looked at me, and opened with his hands his bosom, saying, See now how I rend me, how mutilated see is Mahomet. In front of me doth Ali go weeping go, cleft in the face from forelock unto chin. And all the others whom thou here beholdest, disseminators of scandal and of schism, while living were, and therefore are cleft thus. A devil is behind here, who doth cleave us, thus cruelly unto the falchion's edge, putting again each one of all this ream, when we have gone around that doleful road, by reason that our wounds are closed again, ere any one in front of him repass. But who art thou, that musest on the crag, perchance to postpone going to the pain that is adjudged upon thine accusations? Nor death hath reached him yet, nor guilt doth bring him, my master made reply, to be tormented, but to procure him full experience. Me, who am dead, behooves it to conduct him down here through hell, from circle unto circle, and this is true as that I speak to thee. More than 100 were there when they heard him, who in the moat stood still to look at me, through wonderment, oblivious to their torture. Now say to Fra Dolcino, then, to arm him, thou, who perhaps wilt shortly see the sun, if soon he wish not here to follow me. So with provisions, that no stress of snow may give the victory to the Novarese, which otherwise to gain would not be easy. And after 1 foot to go away he lifted, This word did Mahomet say unto me. Then to depart upon the ground he stretched it, another one, who had his throat pierced through, and nose cut off close, but underneath the brows, and had no longer but a single ear. Staying to look in wonder with the others before the others did his gullet open, which outwardly was red in every part, and said, O thou whom guilt doth not condemn, and whom I once saw up in Latian land, unless it too great similitude deceive me, call to remembrance Pierre de Medicina, if ever thou see again the lovely plain that from Vercelli slopes to Marcabo, and make it known to the best of the two of Fano, to Messer Guido and Angelilello likewise, that if foreseeing here be not in vain, cast over from their vessels shall they be, and drowned near unto the Catalica, by the betrayer of a tyrant fell. Between the isles of Cyprus and Majorca, Neptune never yet beheld so great a crime, neither of pirates nor Argolic people. That traitor, who sees only with one eye and holds the land, which someone here with me would fain be fasting from the vision of, will make them come unto a parley with him. Then will do so that to Ficara's win they will not stand in need of vow or prayer. And I to him, show to me and declare that if thou wouldst have me bear up news of thee, who is this person of the bitter vision,
Then he did lay his hand upon the jaw of one of his companions, and his mouth opened, crying, "This is he, and he speaks not." This one, being banished, every doubt submerged, and Caesar, by affirming the aforearmed, always with detriment allowed delay. Oh, how bewildered unto me appeared, with tongue asunder and his windpipe slit, Curio, who was in speaking so bold, and one, with both his hands dissevered, had the stumps uplifting through murky air so that blood made horrible his face, cried out,
Thou shalt remember Mosca also, who said, Alas, a thing done has an end,
which was an ill seed for the Tuscan people.
and death unto thy race thereto, I added, whence he, accumulating woe on woe,
Departed like a person sad and crazed. It's hard to know when to change the voice. But I remained to look upon the crowd, and saw a thing which I should be afraid, without some further proof, even to recount, if it were not that conscience reassures me, but that good companion which emboldens man beneath the hauberk of its feeling pure.
I truly saw, and still I seemed to see it, a trunk without a head walk in like manner, as walked the others of the mournful herd, and by the hair it held a head dissevered, hung from the hand in the fashion of a lantern, and that upon us gazed and said, O me! It of itself made to itself a lamp, and they were two in one and one in two. How that can be, he knows who so ordains it. When it was come close to the bridge's foot, it lifted high its arm with all the head, to bring more closely unto us its words, which were, Behold now the sore penalty, thou who dost breathing go the dead beholding. Behold if any be as great as this. And so that thou may carry news of me, know that Bertram be born am I, the same who gave to the young king the evil comfort. I made the father and son rebellious, Achitophel not more with Absalom, and David did with his accursed goadings. Because I parted persons so united, parted do I now bear my brain, alas, from its beginning, which is in this trunk. Thus is observed in me the counterpoise. And so ends 28. And again, this is the wild imaginings of a man, right? Now, 1300 was the very tail end of the Muslim aggressions. The people of Muhammad had been oppressing for several hundred years the people of Europe, and some people aren't going to like to hear that, but that's unfortunate. That is history. It is happening again, and that is unfortunate. It is history in the making. Hopefully, the conclusion winds up being the same without it being a couple of hundred years for it to happen, but that is beyond my hands. It is possible that it will kick off here as well, and that is also beyond my hands. I have made my position clear. It is not to get involved because things are written that are written, and if you don't know what that means, you should watch the Bible study. Next up, we are going to be doing Inferno, Canto 29.
The many people in the diverse wounds these eyes of mine had so inebriated that they were wishful to stand still and weep. But, said Virgilius, what dost thou gaze at? Why is thy sight still riveted down there among the mournful mutilated shades?
Thou hast not done so at the other Boljake. Consider, as if to count them thou believest, that 2 and 20 miles the valley winds, and now the moon is underneath our feet. Henceforth the time allotted us is brief,
and more is to be seen than what thou seest. If thou hadst, I made answer thereupon, attended to the cause for which I looked,
perhaps a longer stay thou wouldst have pardoned. Meanwhile, My guide departed, and behind him I went, already making my reply, and superadding. In that cavern where I held my eyes with such attention fixed, I think a spirit of my blood laments the sin which down below there cost so much. Then said the master, be no longer broken. Thy thought from this time forward upon him. Attend elsewhere, and there let him remain. For him I saw below the little bridge, pointing at thee and threatening with his finger, fiercely, and I heard him called Jerry del Bello. So wholly at that time wast thou impeded by him who formerly held Altaforte, thou did not look that way. So he departed. O my conductor, his own violent death, which is not yet avenged for him, I said, by any who is sharer in the shame, made him disdainful, whence he went away, as I imagined, without speaking to me, and thereby made me pity him the more. Thus did we speak as far as the first place upon the crag which the next valley shows, down to the bottom if there were more light. The next valley shows down to the bottom if there were more light. When we were now right over the last cloister of Maliboje, so that its lay brothers could manifest themselves unto our sight. Divers lamenting pierced me through and through, which with compassion had their arrows barbed. Whereat mine ears I covered with my hands, what pain would be if from the hospitals of Valladolid twixt July and September, and of Maremma and Sardinia, all the diseases in one mote were gathered. Such was it here, and such a stench came from it, as from putrescent limbs is wont to issue. We had descended on the furthest bank from the long crag upon the left hand still, and then more vivid was my power of sight, down towards the bottom where the ministress of the high Lord, justice infallible, punishes forgers, which she here records. I do not think a sadder sight to see was in Aegina, the whole people sick. When was the air so full of pestilence, the animals, down to the little worm, all fell, and afterwards the ancient people, according as the poets have affirmed, were from the seeds of ants restored again. Then, then was it to behold through the then was it to behold through that dark valley the spirits languishing in divers heaps, this on the belly, that upon the back one of the others lay, and others crawling shifted themselves along the dismal road. We step by step went onward without speech, gazing upon and listening to the sick who had not strength enough to lift their bodies. I saw two sitting leaned against each other, as leans and heating platter against platter from head to foot, spotted over with scabs. And never saw I plied a currycomb, my stable boy, for whom his master waits, or him who keeps awake unwillingly, as every one was plying fast the bite of nails upon himself, for the great rage of itching which no other succor had, and the nails downward with him dragged the scab in fashion as a knife the scales of brim, or any other fish that has them largest. O thou, that with thy fingers dost dismail thee, began my leader unto them now, and makest of them pincers now and then, tell me if any Latian is with those who are herein. So may thy nails suffice thee to all eternity unto this work. Latians are we, whom thou so wasted seest, both of us here. The weaving one made reply, but who art thou that questionest us about us? And said the guide, one am I who descends down with this living man from cliff to cliff. I intend to show hell unto him. Then broken was their mutual support, and trembling each one turned himself to me, with others who had heard him by rebound. Wholly to me did the good master gather, saying, say unto them whatever thou wistest, and I began, since he would have it so. So may your memory not steal away, in the first world from out the minds of men, but so may it survive neath many suns. Say to me who ye are, and of what people. Let not your foul and loathsome punishment make you afraid to show yourselves to me. I of Arezzo was, one made reply, and Albert of Siena had me burned. But what I died for does not bring me here. 'Tis true, I said to him, speaking in jest, that I could rise by flight into the air, and he, who had conceived but little wit, would have me show him the art. And only because of no Daedalus I made me be burned by one who held him as his son. But unto the last Bulgy of the 10, for alchemy, which in the world I practiced, Minos, who cannot err, has me condemned. And to the poet, said I, now, was ever so vain a people as the Sienese? Not for a certainty the French by far. Whereat the other leper, who had heard me, replied unto my speech, taking out Stricia, who knew the art of moderate expenses, and Nicolo, who the luxurious use of cloves discovered earliest of all within that garden where such seed takes root, and taking out the band, among whom squandered Cassia de Ascian his vineyards and vast woods, and where his wit with the obligatio proffered. But that thou knowest who thus doth second thee against the Sienese, make sharp thine eye towards me, so that my face well answer thee, and thou shalt see that I am Capocchio's shade, who metals falsified by alchemy. Thou must remember, if I well descry thee, how I a skilful ape of nature was. And so ends 29. And this one is very interesting, right? I'm going all the way back up to the top so I can see this, and because, oh, this is dead air, and I don't like dead air, but I'm not going to remember to take it out, but I can't remember what it was I was trying to pull now. See, that's why I got to do it when I... Oh, the sicknesses. That's what it was. This was just before the Black Plague. Like, the Black Plague overtook Europe after this book was published. It was within a decade, but it was after. And that's interesting because it's talking about whenever was these cities so consumed by the death of the pestilences and everybody consumed and their bodies covered in scabs and all that. That part actually happened, like shortly after the end of these books. Now, I'm not sure
where in the timeline we are, right? It's between 1307 and 1327. Well, the Black Plague was 1333-ish, something like that. And it took a couple of years. It was short comparatively speaking, but it was not months, it was like a year and a half. But that actually happened, and I wanted to point that out because that at least is a little bit precognitive, even though he wasn't really saying it was a prophecy or a premonition in that manner. And I just wanted to point it out. So
anyway, Canto 30, and this will be the last one for today. 'Twas at the time when Juno was enraged for Semele against the Theban blood, as she already more than once had shown. So reft of reason Athamas became, that, seeing his own wife with children twain walking encumbered upon either hand, he cried, Spread out the nets, that I may take the lioness and her whelps upon the passage, and then extended his unpitying claws, seizing the first, who had the name Learchus, and whirled him round and dashed him on a rock, and she, with the other burthen, drowned herself. And at the time when fortune downward hurled the Trojans' arrogance, that all things dared, so that the king was with his kingdom crushed, Hecuba, sad, disconsolate, and captive, when lifeless she beheld Polyxena, and of her Polydorus on the shore. On the shore of ocean was the dolorous one aware, out of her senses like a dog she barked, so much the anguish had her mind distorted. but not of Thebes, the Furies, nor the Trojan were ever seen in any one so cruel and goading beast, and much more human members, as I beheld two shadows pale and naked, who, biting, in the manner ran along that a boar does, when from the sty turned loose. One to Capaocho came, and by the nape seized with its teeth his neck, so that in dragging it made his belly grate the solid bottom. And the Aretine, who trembling had remained, said to me, that mad sprite is Gianni Schicchi, and raving goes thus harrying other people. Oh, said I to him, so may not the other set teeth on thee. Let it not weary thee to tell us who it is ere it dart hence. And he to me, that is the ancient ghost of the nefarious Mira, who became beyond all rightful love her father's lover. She came to sin with him after this manner, by counterfeiting of another's form, as he who goeth yonder undertook, that he might gain the lady of the herd, to counterfeit in himself Buoso Donati, making a will and giving it due form. After the two maniacs had passed, on whom I held mine eye, I turned it back to look upon the other, evil born. I saw one made in a fashion of a lute, if he had only had the groin cut off, just at the point at which a man is forked. The heavy dropsy that so disproportions the limbs with humors which it ill concocts, that the face corresponds not to the belly, compelled him to hold his lips apart, as does the heretic, who, because of thirst, one towards the chin, the other upward turns. O ye who without any torment are, and why I know not, in the world of woe, he said to us, Behold, and be attentive unto the misery of Master Adam. I had while living much of what I wished, and now, alas, a drop of water crave. The rivulets that from the verdant hills of Casentine descend down into Arno, making their channels to be cold and moist, ever before me stand, and not in vain. For far more doth their image dry me up than the disease which strips my face of flesh. The rigid justice that chastises me draweth occasion from the place in which I sinned, to put the more my sighs in flight. There is Romena, where I counterfeited the currency imprinted with the Baptiste, for which I left my body burned above. But if I here could see the tristful soul of Guido or Alessandro or their brother, for Branda's font, I would not give the sight. One is within already, if the raving shades that are going around speak truth, but what avails it me, whose limbs are tied? If I were only still so light that in 100 years I could advance 1 inch, I had already started on the way, seeking him out among this squalid folk, although the circuit be 11 miles, and be not less than half a mile across. For them am I in such a family. They did induce me into coining florins, which had 3 carats of impurity. And I to him, who are the 2 poor wretches that smoke like unto a wet hand in winter, lying there close upon thy right hand confines. I found them here, replied he, when I reined into this chasm, and since they have not turned, nor do I think they will forevermore. One, the false woman, who is accused Joseph; the other, the false Sinon, Greek of Troy. From acute fever they send forth such reek. And one of them, who felt himself annoyed at being, peradventure, named so darkly, smote with the fist upon his hardened paunch. It gave a sound as if it were a drum, and Master Adam smote him in the face with arm that did not seem to be less hard, saying to him, Although be taken from me all motion from my limbs that heavy are, I have an arm unfettered for such need. Whereat he answer made, When thou didst go unto the fire, thou hadst it not so ready, but hadst it so and more when thou wast coining the dropsicle. Thou sayest true in that, but thou wast not so true a witness there, where thou wast questioned of the truth at Troy. If I spake false, thou falsified the coin, said Sinon, and for one fault I am here, and thou for more than any other demon. Remember, perjurer, about the horse, he made reply, who had the swollen belly, and rueful be it thee, the whole world knows it. Rueful to thee the thirst be wherewith cracks thy tongue, the Greek said, and the putrid water that hedges so thy paunch before thine eyes. Then the false coiner, so is gaping wide thy mouth for speaking evil, as 'tis wont, because if I have thirst and humour stuffed me, thou hast the burning in the head that aches, and to lick up the mirror of Narcissus. Thou wouldst not want words many to invite thee. In listening to them I was wholly fixed when the master said to me, Now, just look, for little wants it that I quarrel with thee. When him I heard in anger speak to me, I turned round towards him with such shame that still it eddies through my memory. And as he is who dreams of his own harm, who dreaming wishes it may be a dream, so that he craves what is as if it were not. Such I became, and not having power to speak, for to excuse myself I wished, and still excused myself, and did not, I think I did it. Less shame doth wash away a greater fault, the master said, than this of thine has been. Therefore, thyself, this burden of all sadness, and make account that I beside thee. If ever it come to pass that fortune bring thee where there are people in a like dispute, for a base wish is it to wish to hear it. And so ends Canto 30, and that's where we're going to wrap it up. And this is mind your own business. I love it, right? This is, hey, that's not your business. Don't get in the middle of it. Don't even pay attention to it. Don't get in the drama. Boy, if I don't like that, I don't know. I want to know the beef, but I don't want to be in the beef. These days, I don't even want to know the beef. Y'all just keep doing your thing, and I'm just going to keep listening to your music, and we ain't going to fight about it because I don't want to, right? I don't want to know the reasons why I shouldn't. And so I'm ignoring things. I'm not getting into the beef. I don't pay attention to the drama. We have our own problems going on in the real world, and we don't need to worry about the ones going on in the world of make believe, right? People picking beef where there is no beef. You got an album dropping? Let's drop a disc tape. It's meaningless. Don't burden yourself with it. This is as close to something doctrinal as we're probably going to get, and this was actually good advice. I'm with it. This is good for a historical reference, right? It's good to look back on the mind of a 1300s man, right? Men were not so different then than they are now. They were committing the same sins. They were having the same lessons to learn. They were fighting the same battles on different scales. We have temptation that we can hold in our hand these days. We have a vast world of possibilities of things that can lead us downhill. But we also have a vast world of things that can lead us uphill. We can use this tool of knowledge in the light or in the darkness, and the choice is up to us, and we have to make that choice. I'm making the choice to use it for positivity. That's what I hope you are doing as well. I like seeing the historicity here, right? I like seeing these legends and myths that I've never heard of that I'm going to have to go back and look up. We may even do a whole section just on the various myths and legends, right? Just to read through them and make sure that I understand them. The last time I actually read through Aesop's Fables, for instance, I was probably 15 years old. And so it's a lot of time. A lot of water's passed under the bridge since then. We'll have to explore some more. A lot of these things that are being mentioned here, I don't have enough knowledge to really talk about. It's not doctrinal, so I'm not even really trying to argue the theology side of it. It's interesting for history. There are so many names mentioned as we go along that I could probably get content for the rest of forever just picking apart the different names and stories that are listed in here. If I could find the actual PDFs so that we could read them, we could probably be busy for the rest of forever. This is great. I'm loving it. I'm having a great time. Don't take it as doctrine, and you're fine. The doctrine for God is ridiculously simple. It is so simple, right? It is ask for forgiveness and you get it. It's that simple. You don't have to walk down an aisle. You don't have to dive into water. You don't have to have none sprinkled in your face. And for damn sure, nothing has to die. Except your sin. Like, your sin is the sacrifice that is required, and it is the only one. If you go and you say, Dear Heavenly Father, I come to you as a sinner and I ask you to forgive my sin, that's done already. You can add stuff on. I do. I like to say that I freely accept the grace that you freely extend, and I ask you to change my life. But those are implied in the first part. The entirety of the commandments is laid out before, and it's so simple. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You do that, and you're golden. Now you're given a command. You're told to do something. Go forth, be fruitful and multiply. Subdue the earth and be stewards thereof, and shed no blood of man. And therein is the entirety of the law. If you do those things, if you ask for forgiveness, if you truly seek his face, and if you are remorseful when you fall, you are good and golden. It is simply that simple. There is no need to give anybody any money. There is no need to do anything other than what he tells you to do. If you don't believe me, go back and read the book yourself. If you don't want to read it, I read it for you. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you.
You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. This has been Pitt's Take. Peace.